use our money to push a wicked agenda that's destroyed our profession, our country, our children, our freedoms, and they use us as pawns. And by the way, they also use the PTA as pawns. So if you're paying the PTA, time to get out of there too. So
Amen.
yes,
Amen. And you know what
yeah.
the problem is? Let's just stop. We have to stop there for a second, Rebecca, and then I want you to tell us about how we're going to help you to defund the NEA and the AFT and to free teachers. But I want to talk about PTA because, I was a PTA mom. My friend and I, when we looked to try to help our school, I worked as a liaison from the PTA to the school board. My friend came in and ran for PTA president, and we worked to try to make the PTA more accessible to more parents within our district, within our school, and to work with the district. And we got our school fixed. So local PTA sometimes at the school level is great, like it's really lovely and it works well. But the national associations, the PTA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Bar Association, all these associations are just like completely captured and woke and do not represent the people that are paying them dues or are members anymore. And we have to break this cycle because they're speaking at a level nationally that has credibility and they are influencing guidance and change, but they are not representative of us, the people of America.
You are precisely right. An AFT member many years ago, once in a while they speak the truth, and this woman said the PTA has credibility, and that's why we always use the PTA as a front. So what happened to the PTA in the 1960s and 70s? They were captured by the so-called teacher unions. They were bullied into a stance of neutrality. So the PTA is not allowed to stand against anything that teacher unions are for. They have to be neutral, which is why you see PTA members out marching at, strikes and these kind of things that are not good for children. The PTA now, I agree with you. I was the PTA teacher rep for many years, and that's when I started seeing the corruption within the PTA, and I learned that the majority of the dues were going up to the county, state, and national. And then we went to county, state, and national meetings, and they were identical to the education mafia. It was all about, the sex ed agenda, the critical race theory, and all of that. They're pushing that whole agenda. So the PTA has been captured. The parents at the bottom doing their bake sales are amazing, but they are funding a very corrupt, wicked agenda. And one other thing, every agency and institution in this country has been captured, and all of them have been captured through these government unions. So, for example, the CDC is unionized. That's why it's so corrupt. And when you look into like the DMV, here in California, illegals are now granted a driver's license, and on automatic, they're registered to vote with that driver's license. And the DMV is doing that. Why? They're unionized. So no matter where you go into something corrupted in this country, agencies and institutions, the FBI, unionized. So these unions are the root cause of the evils and corruption in this country. So that's what we do every day, is try to expose that and help people to understand to abandon government unions.
Let's do it.
Great.
Let's do it. So
Um,
adopt a teacher. Let's talk about it. How does this
yeah,
work? Because I think a lot of
yeah.
people talk about this issue, right? We're like, we should do this, we should do that. Like, how are we going to do it? Let's talk about it, Rebecca. How do we help you?
Yes, well, it's very easy. And what I'm going to do too while I'm talking is send you a landing page from our website. And maybe when we're done, you could post it onto your Twitter for everybody if they want to have easy access. So,
Perfect.
so my husband and I started a nonprofit. It's called For Kids and Country. And you can find us at forkidsandcountry.org. Why did we start it? And we started it several years ago. We started it because we know that teachers and other government employees have been trapped in these so-called unions for decades and forced to fund them for over 40 years. But because of our lawsuit and the Janus case, they're no longer forced. So we wanted to get the word out because the unions were able to pass all these laws to make it illegal for employers to tell their employees they've been freed from government unions and all this other nonsense. So we had to work to get the word out. So we have as Steve Bannon would say, action, action, action plan. And it's very simple. Step number one, adopt a teacher. Everyone knows a teacher. If you don't know a teacher, adopt another government employee, someone who works for the VA or the DMV or any government agency or institution. Adopt that person. What does that mean? On our website, you'll just click on Adopt a Teacher, and there's a little form that takes 3 minutes to read. It basically is put your arm around them, educate them on the truth about government unions, empathize with them that they've been funding the demise of our culture, let them know they've been freed, and then walk them through getting out. So then all they have to do is click on Union Exit. Once they're ready to get out, they click on Union Exit. It's a 3-step program on our website. Step one is a toolkit that answers the questions, the frequently asked questions of teachers, because teachers have been told they're going to lose their job if they opt out of unions, or they're going to lose their contract, blah, blah, blah. They've been told all these lies, and people don't know how to answer them. So we answer them in our toolkit. Then step two, they click on step two. They're led to an online map, an interactive map. They click on their state. Up pops every government union in their state. They click on their union, and we walk them through the opt-out process. If they're harassed, or if they signed something they didn't realize that's trapped them in the union for a while, we have lawyers that we partner with that will help them through that process. And then step three is teachers have been told you have to have the union's liability insurance because you're going to be sued. Well, here's the truth, and we talk about this in our toolkit too. The union or education mafia liability insurance is inferior. It only protects you if you're sued. No good teacher is going to be sued. If you molest a child, you might be sued. So the unions will defend you if you're being sued. But if you have a job action against you, which is happening constantly to good teachers now, they're put on administrative leave and all this other nasty stuff, the union won't defend you at all. It happened to a friend of mine. She had a false accusation. The union wouldn't defend her. She said, "Where's my $1 million of coverage?" They said, "We don't help with a job action. Give us $100,000 and we'll defend you." She lost her job in 2 weeks. She lost her home. She lost everything. Great teacher too. So we lead people to use far superior liability insurance that is not only a fraction of the cost. So the unions are charging you $1,000 or $1,200 a year. These are about $200 a year. And the unions give you $1 million of coverage. These give you $2 million or more. The unions only cover you if you're sued. These cover you if you're sued or if there's a job action against you. So it's better coverage. So that's step three. We lead them to that. So now they're protected. They're out of the union. They're not funding the demise of our constitutional free republic or freedom around the world. And they can feel good about what they're doing, and they won't be used as pawns anymore.
That's awesome, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing that. It still leaves the part of, the ostracization in the community that you're a part of, right? And so that to me is where Moms for Liberty or other parent groups can come in to try to support teachers and to let teachers know that they're not alone. And sometimes you may not, and hopefully you don't know the political leanings of any given teacher, right? I mean, you hopefully your kid isn't coming home and saying like, "Oh, my teacher voted for so and so, and this is what they believe." That's not what we want. Doesn't matter which perspective they're coming from. But if you're speaking out at your school board meetings and you're talking about these things, then teachers are paying attention. Hopefully, they're paying attention and knowing that there's space for them to be and to stand up against this. I mean, the mafia. It really is. I don't know what to say.
Yes.
I remember they didn't like a raise. We were in bargaining, and bargaining just blew me away, Rebecca, because it was so wild. I remember I said in one of the bargaining sessions, I was like, okay, so the teachers union bargains for the teachers and the district bargains for the district. Who bargains for the parents and the kids?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
us,
would love
school
to.
board.
I would love to address that, Tiffany, and I'll tell you why.
Please.
In the past, parents were a part of, it wasn't called bargaining then, but parents were brought to the table, and the community, the neighborhood would work together with the schools to make all these decisions, how much we're going to pay, what curriculum we're going to use. What happened? Well, it used to be that government unions were illegal in America. They need to be made illegal again, but they were given the right to become government unions and to unionize government employees, which means that our tax dollars that are paying these government employees are being used to fund the dues to these private organizations that call themselves unions, who are really a mafia, who then got JFK to sign an executive order giving them the right to collectively bargain. Once collective bargaining came on the scene, and all these teachers have been told collective bargaining is amazing. It's not. Here's what happened with collective bargaining. It removed parents and taxpayers from the process. So now you have the union bargaining across the table with people they've put into office. And by the way, If the teachers get a raise, so do the administrators. So if an administrator's on the other side of the table and the union says, we want the teachers to get an 8% raise, well, the administrator's going to get that same perk. The whole thing's corrupt. The parents and taxpayers been left out, and they need to be brought in again. We need to end collective bargaining. We need to end government unions, and we need to get neighborhoods running their schools again. Parents first. And teachers, we are a support to parents. We are there to serve the children and the parents and the neighborhood. We need to get back to that.
It's really inspiring, Rebecca. So now we have some other speakers. So I'm just going to run through because I think that's really important. We have so many amazing people that are working right now in this movement to reclaim public education in America. And I truly believe that we need to do that. I can remove my kids from the school. Everybody on this call can. 40% of Americans can, and there will still be 60% of American children in America's public schools, and we need to reclaim them. We have ignored them for too long, and there is value in teaching the children of a country to read and to explore and and they don't have to be indoctrinated. It doesn't have to be like this. And so I put some things up in the nest. I can learn, and I'm learning now. And so one of the people that we have that's a speaker is Tony Kinnett, and Tony is a teacher and in Indiana, I believe, if I remember that correctly. It's been a really long day, but he started Chalkboard Review, which is really exposing a lot of the things that is happening and giving people a voice. So Tony, if you want to unmute yourself and just whatever you have to add to the conversation and talk a little bit about the work you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tiffany. And I'm really excited because there's just this unstoppable wave of individuals who's come forward in the last couple of years, not just to elevate one particular set of solutions, but really to meet the needs of so many parents and students and teachers across the country. I taught in Indiana. I've taught in Wisconsin. I was the science director for Indianapolis Public Schools before they canned me for exposing critical race theory and literally just citing administrators in the open, simply sharing some of their emails publicly. And since then, we haven't stopped. We've continued to do the work that so few are willing to do. We first of all, we provide an open platform, regardless of political frame, for anyone in education, whether you're a parent, teacher, administrator, substitute, professor, student, teacher, to write your opinions on education. We're the only platform that does that in education. Chalkbeat won't do it, EdWeek won't do it, but we will. And that's been a wonderful place to read not just articles that have political flavor, but also apolitical articles as well. And then, of course, we've started providing education news reporting, often on the stories that a lot of other outlets choose not to report on. And these aren't always stories that just make the right look good or make the liberty side of things look good, but also simply releasing data to parents to do with what they will, because that's who should be given the power, are those who are casting the votes to shape communities. And, as we continue on, that's what we're excited to just expand by the day. We had no idea we would have the audience that we've gained in just 18 months. And literally just hearing the speaker before me, I'm so encouraged just at the number of teachers that are not suckered into the woke positive feedback loop and finding your worth and purpose through advocacy. The teachers unions so encourage those that are your kind of classic Mr. Feeney style teachers that just want kids to learn and develop and to become better members of their community, to take on responsibility and to seek after virtue and academic knowledge. It's not as lost in art as people think it is. It just needs the right amount of spotlight, and it'll become at the forefront again. So that's why I'm incredibly optimistic.
That's awesome. So Tony, tell us, if someone wants to submit an article to you, how do they do that? Because I'd love to have more teachers writing about what they're experiencing right now.
Oh, absolutely. And the place that you should go to do that is chalkboardreview.com. There's a little Write For Us tab up in the top. And actually, the tweet that I'm seeing here at the top of the speaker nest is our coverage of the Florida Board of Education meeting today. So you can follow that to get to chalkboardreview.com. You can submit things there. We have yet to reject an article for political reasons. So there's an article that we have up at Chalkboard that calls me a big, stinky, meanie head for supporting certain things that I do on the right or in the center. And we have, a lot of other content as well. And we would love to hear from you. We would love to see what's working. Again, it doesn't have to be political, even if it's just a reflection on something in the classroom or as a parent or as a student. We think everyone is a stakeholder in education. And so that voice is necessary to add to the conversation.
I really love that. And everybody's voice is important. And that was kind of what I took away from the Board of Education meeting today, Tony, was the fact that, there were a lot of people there that really didn't understand the process. But there was an opportunity to be able to give input in the rulemaking process. And it was a missed opportunity by many who were just there and were angry and have been motivated to action, but didn't really understand why they were there, like what the purpose was, right? It was just this manufactured outrage. And I just appreciate you guys covering it. I'm curious if you had any thoughts about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. The first and foremost thought that I have whenever I assign someone from Chalkboard Review to cover something, and we had a few people of our staff that were monitoring the situation today. And the first thing that I noticed is how other journalists are covering it, because we're obviously trying to improve how we do things all the time. I'm never going to claim a Chalkboard Review article is produced perfectly. There are always ways that we can improve how we cover events to make sure that it's covered fairly. And I noticed that a lot of media, excuse me, a lot of media and a lot of advocates, they left before it was over today. They waited until the voting process was done, and then they were flooding out angrily muttering. And that's such an embarrassment because there are so many people who genuinely have things to add to this that should be considered, that should be noted as accommodations in the future, especially regarding Florida's process in running the Board of Education, that realistically, we owe it to actually stay for the entire thing. It's incomplete journalism to just take what you're looking for in a story and run with it. And that's really been the story of Florida in the last couple of years in its education legislation processes. People take what they want to see, the self-fulfilling prophecy out of, for example, Florida's 1557, the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. The bill has said nothing about anything that it's been casted as. And yet, even today, people still run with this narrative. So what I've been running away with from our coverage of the Florida Board of Education today is that there are a lot of individuals who are no longer taking things at face value. They are reading the bill. They are taking action. They are holding individuals accountable, and not in a threatening manner, not in a way where they're putting their thumb to the nose of an individual and pressing it down, but more so that these are parents and individuals in the community who are getting active and then are doing their due diligence to do the research, to do the reading, to make sure that it is actually up to mustard, that it's actually doing what it was set out to do. Yeah. And as someone working in policy, that's always encouraging.
So Tony, did you see, so everybody held to their 1 minute. They had 1 minute. That was the time. I mean, and man, you go in there and everybody goes in, you think it's going to be 3 minutes. I thought it was going to be about 1 minute, to be honest with you. So I was ready for 1 minute. And my timing has gotten better, right? I watch a lot of school board meetings, so
sure.
Right. And so, but you get 1 minute. Everybody gets up there, and everyone is following the 1 minute rule. And you get like a beep at 30 seconds or 15 seconds, I think, and then it beeps when it's over. And the one person, did you see? One person lost their mind today. A teacher. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did.
But Tony, I mean, isn't it ironic though that like the teacher can't follow the rules? And she was like, I should get more time. I heard her and I understood what she was saying, but there were other teachers there that had followed the 1 minute rule. And it's like, if you want to change the process of a meeting or you want to change the time or suggest a different process, then do that. But to break the rules in that way, what kind of example is that setting?
I mean, it's interesting that you say that. We're getting ready to break a story on a school board candidate in Indianapolis who basically set her boyfriend out to harass a conservative or more parent-focused candidate while he was out canvassing. And there's a video of this, and we're getting ready to send it out into the public, making sure that, again, we do our due diligence first. But in this situation, I thought the same thing. Who are you really convincing? And I saw this again during the Indiana latest legislative session I was invited to testify at, in which there would be these individuals that would get up and they would make absolute fools of themselves. And it was really disappointing to me because I thought there are some progressive points that are very worth hearing here, at least for consideration. And it is extremely unfortunate that these individuals choose to get up and honestly just let out the crazy. And they don't showcase why the argument is worthwhile or why it should be considered or why the language should be worded a specific way so that exceptions can be made in important circumstances. But they just choose to get up and then shoot the most vile extremes that they can think of. And then they act shocked when it doesn't land as some huge emotional remember the Titans speech moment. And I think that's what I really saw today. It really looked like this teacher was looking to land some huge important claims that we were all just going to walk away from slack-jawed, like, wow, this was amazing. And instead, all it did was it hurt the teacher. And quite honestly, it kind of, it was really embarrassing. It felt like I was watching The Office. I got secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah, and it was hard. And we were sitting there, and Matt Woodside, I invited as a speaker. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Matt. So just be on deck. Matt was there, and he was like, "Listen, I'm a teacher. I got 1 minute too. Like, I can follow rules. Can't you follow rules?" And one of our moms got up afterwards, and she was like, "This is exactly what we're talking about. They think they're above the rules and the law. They think there's some messianic work that they're doing that should be considered in a way that is outside of the bounds of reproach constantly. And it's just ridiculous." And
Right. Matt actually just joined the chalkboard review team as a correspondent. And we're thrilled to have him. We were really very fortunate to have him with us there today. And it's those kinds of teachers that you just want to get behind, right? The ones that look like they could lead the community and could be responsible for your children in a positive fashion.
Yeah, and he just spoke the truth. That's the thing, he just got up and he told the truth about what's happening. So we'll hear from Matt in a second. Shannon from Awake, Illinois, is such an amazing advocate for parents and for teachers, and I know she's working really hard. Shannon, let's talk about Illinois and Chicago specifically. So you have, I think, I'm going to ask some questions now. Let's see how much I know about what's happening in Chicago. There's a teachers union, or actually we're going to go with Rebecca's wording. There's an education mafia candidate running for mayor against Lori Lightfoot because she didn't do enough in bowing to the unions. She actually did. They got so ridiculous in Chicago that she actually drew a line. Lori Lightfoot had to draw a line. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
it was how many months and months and months, and these teacher unions were still lobbying for the schools to remain closed. So yes, it was a hot mess. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Rebecca, and Matt, for your advocacy. Am I the only one eating Halloween candy tonight? I'm raising a Twix in the air to salute all of you for your efforts. I will tell you, Chicago Teacher Union is the most powerful union in the United States of America. And when you look at the school district and the harms that have been done to children, even before COVID, long before COVID, as the Chicago Teacher Union power increased, the academic performance of the students decreased. So even if the teacher union was funding, Republican or conservative politics and the student performance is going down, that is the correlation. The teacher union is just that, Rebecca. It is wicked. It's harming children. And Chicago Public Schools is an example of that. And what we found during the COVID nightmare in Illinois with our disastrous governor, who wants to be your president, by the way, vote him out November 8th if you're in Illinois listening. But we found through FOIA that the teacher union lackeys were colluding with the governor's office on the forced masking of children, the quarantining of healthy children, and the school closures. So this was all political, and we know now that it was never about health and safety. It was about politics and about money and power. So for anybody who has questions about why the teacher unions are so bad, use Chicago Public Schools as your case study. And in Illinois, Tiffany, we have on the ballot for November 8th, the first question on the ballot statewide is called Amendment 1, which is looking to essentially change the the Illinois Constitution to give the unions more power than our state legislature. So if it passes in a 3/5 vote, it would prevent our elected lawmakers from ever curbing the teacher union walkouts or strikes or even their demands and negotiations. So they would be able to basically do whatever they want. And so there's a big push right now in Illinois to say no to Amendment 1. If you know anybody in Illinois who is a voter, tell them to vote no to Amendment 1, because they're terrified right now. And I genuinely think that this is a grab through the ratification of the Illinois Constitution to get power, because guess what? Here's the good news. Teachers are stopping their membership dues in droves. And it's good. It's a good thing. And it's through the awareness of parents and communities and taxpayers who are saying, oh, hell no. You are never going to be able to do this harm to children. Get back to educating them so they can succeed and compete in the global economy, where other countries, and certainly even more states in the US outside of Illinois, prioritize children and their education. So in Illinois, we are a hotbed of teacher union lackeys, of the wicked, as Rebecca would say, but the tide is turning. But we have to be very vigilant. And Amendment 1 and saying no to it on the ballot, again, tell anybody in Illinois who's voting that the teacher union ought not to have any more power, and we should be defunding them.
Yes, we should. And I'm going to give some data here because I think it's important, because I bring the receipts. If you're my friend, if you work with me, you know, we're not blowing smoke here. And if you go to wirepoints.org, that's a group that does work in Illinois. And they have an article, they wrote it on October 25th, 2021, and it says, how can 84% of Chicago public school students graduate when only 26% of 11th graders are proficient in reading?
Oh, it's my favorite article. I love it. It took us about 3.6 seconds to take that and write a story on that article. The data that was collected was flawless.
I mean, honestly,
WirePoints is the best. They are very good with data, and they're really helpful right now with people who are looking at their communities. And the literacy and math scores across Illinois are bad, but nationally it's extremely bad, particularly.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, good.
Let's talk. I mean, really, let's look at this. Only 26% of Chicago 11th graders are proficient in English language arts, and only 27% are proficient in math, according to the 2019 SAT data. Nearly 83% of students in CPS are either Black or Hispanic, and unfortunately, they have the lowest scores. Just 14% of Black 11th graders, 14% of Black 11th graders are proficient in English language arts, and just 13% are proficient in math. How in this country right now are we graduating these children out of high school when they cannot read? Enough. The teachers' unions have had control for far too long, and they have proven that they cannot do their jobs, and all they offer is excuses for educational failure, time and time again. Something has to change. And so, Matt Woodside, so you rocked today. I was so proud to sit there and to watch you speak and to stand in defense of teachers. Thank you so much. And welcome to Defund the NEA AFT unions, giving parents a voice, because you're a dad too.
You know what? Number one, I'm actually not a dad. I'm actually just a teacher.
All right. Well,
yeah,
that's okay. You're a teacher,
but
so we love
you know
to
what,
have
man?
you.
We're all teachers are kind of in this place where we're looking at our kids, where where we care for them, and but we all have to recognize we are not their dads. We are not their parents. You guys are, and so it's been so encouraging to walk alongside Moms for Liberty. And just actually, I didn't even know about you, Moms for Liberty, until I started speaking at school board meetings because of things that were happening in my district. And our local chapter just sprinted to my side and gave their support to me from the beginning. And you guys have been an amazing resource to me, you and Tina and our local chapter. And so it's just been unbelievable. So I would encourage any teachers out there to reach out to your Moms for Liberty chapter. If you are struggling, if you are seeing things in your district that you do not like, and you're wondering, man, do I have the courage to speak up about this? Are there going to be others that are going to encourage me? They're going to stand beside me, that are in my corner? The answer is a resounding yes. And it's been so encouraging for me these last months since February, since I started speaking out. Moms for Liberty has been the catalyst in our community for getting the word out for what things that have been happening in my school, things I've been bringing attention to. And because of Moms for Liberty, the community has come beside me. And so, Tiffany, I want to thank you, you and Tina for for starting your organization to give support to teachers that are on the side of parental rights. So thank you, number one, and I also want to thank Tony, since he's on here, for giving me, like you said earlier, the opportunity to write for Chalkboard Review. It's been an amazing opportunity. I've been wanting to write for a long time, and I'm new at it, but it's been an amazing opportunity, and so I'm looking forward to that as well. So a lot of amazing advocates on here, and I thank you all for what you're doing for these kids, and as teachers, if we can come alongside you guys in any way, let us know. And yeah.
So Matt, tell everybody, so today so I'll just give a brief overview. So we're at the Board of Education, State Board of Education meeting. I said before, the legislature met, they passed laws, and then the government passed legislation. The governor, signed the laws, right? And then now we enter a rulemaking process where the Board of Education has to implement these laws, right? And tell the districts, how is this going to happen? And I've watched as laws have been passed, especially after Marjory Stoneman Douglas, right? There was a lot of how are we supposed to implement these laws here in our district? And they provided good guidance. The Office of Safe Schools did. They worked hard to be able to outline exactly what their expectations were, and it made Florida schools safer, no doubt, in my opinion. They did a very good job with that. And Ryan Petty is on the State Board of Education, and his daughter, Elena, was killed in Marjory Stoneman Douglas. And so he was there today. And, it was an interesting meeting, but we spoke on a couple different things. We spoke on the big thing, I think, was really, holding teachers accountable for, whether or not they are following the laws that are set out for them. Because, we have government schools. And teachers work for the government, right? You're a government actor. You don't have a right to free speech. You don't get to just say whatever you want in the classroom.
That's right.
And, that's really hard for some people, apparently, to draw that boundary. So you spoke today, and I think one of the things that you've experienced personally is the bathroom issue. And the fact that, the Biden administration put out guidance that school districts just decided we're just going to start, we're going to start changing the rules. And I think they were really urged by the teachers unions to do that, and activist organizations, right? And,
that's right.
But the laws hadn't changed. And so can you just give everybody a brief kind of window into what you spoke about today? And I put your speech up in the nest of the space so people can see it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, what's happening in districts across the nation is that they are twisting federal law to meet their worldview. And so what I would do is I would dare anybody who says that we are required to allow kids into restrooms and lockers of the opposite sex. Show me the law. You can't do it. Show me the federal law where it explicitly enumerates that right. It is not there. And so what happens is you have these activists in high places of government that have placed, or at least in school boards that are with these worldviews that are putting these what they will call not policies, but what do we talk about on the podcast, Tiffany?
Procedures. They do the procedures,
right? Because you don't have to vote on procedures, right? So they'll call them procedures. But I'll tell you my story real quick. Basically, I saw this happen at my school where a girl was using a boy's bathroom of the opposite sex, and I went to my administration, told them I'm not going to let it happen under my watch, and so I was given an official notice on our district's letterhead stating that I would face disciplinary action because I was violating district policy, and the word policy was on my notice. And so it was at that moment that I decided, I'm about to go public. So I started speaking at school board meetings and letting parents know what schools wouldn't let them know is that we were letting kids into bathrooms and locker rooms of the opposite sex. And so what happened was teachers started reaching out to me secretly because, of this fear of losing their job if they went public. And so stories started coming out left and right about boys going into girls' bathrooms, pretending to be girls for the day because they knew they could take advantage of the policy because they knew there was nothing that anybody could do about it. And it was proven true because the teacher that I used to teach with, she's what I call the GOAT, the best teacher I've ever met, transferred to that school. And she told me that she told the boys to stop, but her dean came out and told her, listen, there's nothing we can do about it. And so they had to let these boys go into the girls' bathroom and terrorize these girls. She heard girls screaming inside the bathroom, and she was told, "There's nothing you could do. This is Florida, right?" And so then this is the story that's been getting all the headlines, is that a PE teacher in our district reached out to me, letting me know that a girl went into his male locker room because she was following policy, identifying as a male, entered, went into the main changing area in front of all these boys, not behind closed doors, because that's what a lot of people are saying is going to happen. If you let these kids go into the restrooms and locker rooms, they just want privacy. What's the big deal? That's why we have doors, so they can close. Well, that's not what happened. She went to the main changing area, took her shirt off, and everybody there witnessed she was wearing no undergarments under her shirt. She was naked from the waist up in front of this class of male boys and in front of the male teacher in charge of supervision. And
So,
yeah.
I mean, I just want to say, for the record, if it was about privacy, then accommodations, private space bathrooms would be something that would be welcomed, I would think.
Exactly. And this is what
But
I've
it's
been
not
saying,
about that.
No, it's not about accommodation, because if it was about accommodation, exactly that would happen. But what happens is when accommodation infringes upon the rights of other people, accommodation has become oppression. And so now we have ceased to accommodate, and now we are oppressing, because we are not seeking to find equal opportunities for people. No, we are seeking to dominate. We're seeking to infiltrate other people's spaces. And that is not right. It's not fair. It is violating rights of our kids.
Well, thank you for telling your story. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, if you have a chance, go watch that Board of Education meeting. I mean, I really do think Florida is leading in so many different ways right now, and we're having the hard conversations, right, about the things that are really important. And the culture war is being fought in our classrooms. Do not make a mistake about that. They try a lot of tactics to make us feel bad or to shame us out of saying that. James Lindsay, I know some of you like him, some of you don't. I happen to really like him. I listen to his podcast. I've learned a lot from him. I question him a lot, but I think he's a good guy. And he says, and he talks about how Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. Well, culture is downstream from education. And if you listen, he has a 2-part series. It's called The Death of University. And it really pulls together UNESCO and some of the 2030 SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is not tinfoil hat stuff, people. I know people would like to believe that. It gets a little heavy, but you learn a little bit more. You start putting together the connections, and especially when you're inside some of these schools, I think the people that have worked in this space really understand. So I'm going to keep this space to an hour tonight, but before we end, I want to welcome, I'm probably going to butcher his name. I apologize, sir, in advance. Chan Kwok, public school parent, who is the PlaceNYC.org co-founder, a past PTA co-president, and an advocate, education advocate for all students. And I just would like to welcome you and have you share some information about the things that you are working on, sir.
Well, thank you all very much. I didn't expect to join this. I just saw this and I joined immediately. I really just wanted to make 1 or 2 points. I am also, along with what you just said, thank you very much. I'm also a school board member in New York City, in Manhattan, what is left of the school board after the mayor took all the control. The state gave the mayor control, Bloomberg, starting with Mayor Bloomberg. A lot of the issues you mentioned we face here. It's opened my eyes after being an education advocate, or caused me to become an advocate, partly because of the teacher union corruption. And all the things that you guys are going through, we are as well. The UFT is very powerful. They even got the state to fund, to get the Governor Hochul to sign a bill that mandated small class sizes, and it's unfunded. So now, we have to take money from, Rob Peter to pay Paul in order to hire a lot of teachers now at the benefit of, guess who? Teacher unions and programs that parents want, like accelerated education, special education, and so forth, are now going to lose funding. So I think we're on the same battle. I hope we can organize more. I think teacher unions are an existential threat to our country, for our nation's youth. It has a lot of things behind it as well, but it's a corruption. One thing I want to just suggest, I don't know, for the first speaker I was listening to before, sorry, I don't know all the names.
Rebecca Friedrichs from
Rebecca. Yes. Thank you so much for that. And so one avenue also I was thinking about is, I've worked overseas, and American companies or entities that operate in America are subject to a law federal law called Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. It forbids organizations from bribing government officials for gain. And I would really want to apply that to our own country because, teacher unions, municipal unions are an example of corruption. In third world countries, we call it corruption. Over here, we call it business as usual. So I think, I don't know if that's a legal challenge we can make, but I hope to, make this a start. Like, we really have to go after the unions because it's really they're the poison. They've corrupted our systems. They're, the teacher union contracts. The parents have no say in the terms and conditions. I'm still learning, of course, and what Rebecca said many years ago, parents were part of the discussion to set the work rules, whatever. We need to have that back because, the teacher unions have, underserved the Black and Brown communities. They oppose the charter schools who've helped them. We've seen what they've done with the pandemic. We now see all the other things. I think families, parents, their eyes are wide open now. We have a great opportunity as never before to go for school choice, for a lot of different reforms. So thank you all very much for being in this, leading the way, and hopefully we have people also in New York City, New York State, also participating. So and I'll have my colleagues and friends also join in as well, who I think will be very interested. Thank you so much. Sorry for barging
Oh,
in,
thank
extending the
you.
meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. May I ask you a question? Can we talk about how New York City kids are doing? I'd like to have some insight.
Oh
I mean, I
goodness.
feel like you guys have borne the brunt, especially with your youngest learners, that the
Yeah.
ramifications of how
Yeah.
long toddlers were masked in New York, I think
Absolutely.
it's
It's
just
it's insane.
horrendous.
So just as a background, I mean, just to give you a number, I think we're about at 34, $38 billion per year spend as of today, as the latest estimates. That is, 30 some thousand per child, and people and families are fleeing the system. So it's even higher per child, per student, spend. That's like almost 50%, 75% more than the next state. In terms of the cost, per student or next city, the largest city, and the results are abysmal still. Only 15% of Black Hispanic students are proficient. The new chancellor admitted as much, and he wants to reform it, but they're really held back. They've made their own mistakes, unforced errors, all kinds of issues in the state legislature, and that's dominated by very progressive politicians who have actually taken more control away from the mayor and diluted it everywhere. So that's kind of, there's no accountability, that it was as it was intended. So there's lack of accountability, and the school boards were defanged. We have no real power. We have only influence and maybe power of public opinion through the media and so forth. I mean, I recently wrote an op-ed about how the school system is telling parents what they want instead of listening to parents based on what parents want. So that's kind of a nutshell, kind of a viewpoint, a view of New York City. It's horrendous, like any big blue city. And we're also facing migrants now coming, or asylum seekers from south of the border. So we're also, we are, New York City is where Statue of Liberty is. It's where Ellis Island is, and we welcome immigrants and people from all corners of the world. But at the end of the day, it comes down to lack of resources and people to help process the new people coming in. And it's not because we don't like them, but it's not feasible, not practical, pragmatic over the long term to continue while the city and state are already very running out of money. So I
No,
want to
I
keep it
think you
short.
bring up some
Yeah.
great points. And, but the question is, I mean, you say $38 billion.
Yes.
Was
Yes.
that the
B with
amount?
a
I mean,
B.
that's a lot with
With
a
a B.
B. Yes, with a B, BI. Yeah. That's a lot of money. That's big. I mean, we're $38 billion.
Yes.
That's a lot of money that is being spent in education, and to have the outcomes that you have in New York City. But I mean, I have seen some of the things happening in New York, and it seems like there's some hope there. Perhaps with some changes in the way that you're teaching reading, and it doesn't come a moment too soon, because again, your kids were masked for forever. The youngest learners, 2 through 4, toddlers, masked. Until when, Jan? When did the masks come off the toddlers? Because I
Oh
want to end
goodness.
with that.
Only it was only recently. It was only
Yeah,
recently.
it's like a
Yeah.
couple
And
months ago.
yeah. Yes.
So
It
I'm going
is
to
this
end the
child
space.
abuse.
It is child abuse. It's crimes against children. You can do a search, hashtag crimes against children. You can see every time I have watched over the past 2 years that children have been put last in this country, and I have done hashtag crimes against children so that we can go back and we can see it all, because we will not forget. And I thank everyone on this call, on this space, for sharing tonight. Really appreciate it. We're going to try to do another one next Wednesday night, and I appreciate ideas. What do you guys want to talk about? What do you have to share? And let's reclaim public education in America, because I do think it's the place that we need to start to turn this country around. So everyone have a great night, and appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.